I love the construction industry. I've always really enjoyed it, but there is aspects of it that get really, really difficult. I have a bit of a personal gripe when people said you've got one cup and then you pour from that cup into the career and you pour from that cup into the family. And at different points in your life, the way you split that cup, one side is more full than the other. And you always feel, I want to be able to push open doors that maybe people felt were closed before, but I want to hold those doors open for other people to then come through them behind me. And
Queensland stands on the brink of transformation. Over the next decade, billions in infrastructure investment, population growth and private development will reshape our cities, our industries and our workforce. But with opportunity comes responsibility. Are we truly ready? In this episode of Building Doors, I sit down with Ashley Stewart, Project Director at Turner Townsend and a leader driving some of Queensland's most ambitious programs. Ashley has spent her career at the intersection of delivery and development, where projects meet people and where the success depends on the strength of the workforce behind it. Together, we explore how Queensland can rise to meet the decade ahead, how we build the capability, close the readiness gap, and turn today's growth into a legacy that lasts. This isn't about hype or headlines, it's about foresight, planning, and action. Because the future isn't something we wait for, it's something we build. Welcome to the Building Doors podcast.
thank you.
Look, before we get stuck into it, and I know we've been speaking about the Olympics and a lot of exciting things that are coming for Queensland, I actually want to just chat more about you and understanding your career background, because you've been overseas, you've moved to Australia. Tell me a little bit about, I suppose, I'm fascinated by why you chose this industry as well.
Yeah, sometimes I do wonder myself on those. So going way back, I looked into teaching and I looked into architecture. I'm not that patient. And then I was like, it takes how long to become an architect? Complete respect to all the architects out there, because they do it for a really, really long time. So I started looking into construction management. Everyone would say, so is your dad a builder? Does your dad work in construction? It's like, no, my dad works in sales. I started off as a construction site manager as an undergraduate program when I was 18. So if you want to get a thick skin, you start an 18-year-old woman on a building site in Scotland. So yeah, did that for a few years, and then I came back into Australia. Ended up in a client-side role in Melbourne. Did that for a little while. I think I was a little bit too young to really settle in Australia. I was offered a sponsorship and I was 23. And I thought, wow, what an amazing opportunity. But I was just uncomfortable with it. And at the time I remember thinking, what are you giving up? But also now I'm 40 in January, and when I look back on a 23-year-old, I think, well, no wonder you were a little bit scared to stay on the other side of the world yourself. Absolute props to all the backpackers that came out from the UK and never went home and did stay here. Sometimes I think that would have been easier than shipping back over here 15 years later. But yeah, so I went home. I went home in recession. So it was, I think, mid-2009. And the construction industry had just completely collapsed in central Scotland. So it was much more challenging going back than what I expected it to be. The construction company I worked for, they'd pretty much cut in half from there. So getting back into it was really difficult. But there was an event coming up, which was the Glasgow 2014 Commonwealth Games. So I thought, I'm going to try and go and do something there. So I just emailed them all the time. I just emailed them constantly. So until they eventually gave me an interview on something. I didn't actually get that job as well. And I went to do some project coordination work with like an accounting firm, and I hated it. And then they called me back maybe 3 or 4 months later and said, oh, the job that you went for, we're actually going to split it in two. because it's too much for one person. So it was an alternate offer on that. And yeah, the path kind of changed from there. So that was my first move into major events. So I think that was 2011. So I was in 3 years out from Glasgow 2014. 3 years in Games World is quite a long time. And it's funny because we talk about the Olympics here and everyone says 8 years, 7 years, we've not got enough time. But 3 years, I was one of the earliest people in there 3 years out. And yeah, so that kind of changed my path into major events. So I've purposely kept one foot in what I'd call mainstream construction and one foot in major events since then, because I think it can become, you can quite easily get stuck on the games wagon, and the games wagon is amazing and exciting. And I think when you're younger and you've not got as many commitments and mortgages and family and things like that, it can be really great. But as your roots become deeper where you are, it gets more challenging to move around on that, because it does become a group of travelling professionals that work globally. So so that I'd stayed in central Scotland, I worked for a little bit in Canada after that, on the Toronto Pan Am Games, kept dipping in and out of other major events, and I also worked with a tier 1 building contractor. So that was sort of how it rolled for quite a long time. And then I had my second child in 2021, and the night feeds are quite a long and lonely place at times. Your mind starts to wander. So my mind wandered to coming back to Australia. When I'd left in 2009, I'd always thought, I'll go back a year later, maybe. I've got the opportunity, I'll be able to do that. And it was that realisation of, oh, well, I've never gone back. And then it's 2021. So if I don't go back now, do I have to close that book completely and take it off the table? Because it just becomes more difficult from the family and roots perspective, but also from an Australian immigration perspective as well. So there's some hard and fast rules. And we live in a society where we try not to be ageist, but immigration are ageist. they will deduct those points from you if you're over a certain age. So they're not, I don't think that ageism category applies there. So you have to be mindful of that as well. So I suggested it to my husband one Saturday night because I'd become quite obsessed about looking it up on the night feeds and jobs available and what could be happening here and looking at houses and things. And so he was a bit surprised about that.
Yeah.
And he said no. And then 4 months later, he said yes.
That's funny. That's how my husband works as well.
So then we came down here. So yeah.
Okay, because I actually spoke to you and remember we met over Teams, and then instantly I was like, well, we're going to be friends. Like, that's just, a given. We're going to keep in touch.
Yeah.
And subsequently since then, we've been to NALIC Awards together and all sorts of things, because I definitely remember, and one thing I want to talk to a little bit is what it's like to relocate your family into a new country, because I think it is different when you've got kids and everything involved. And the reality is, with the games, with the pipeline of work, there's going to be so many people in that situation. How is it different coming over with a family versus when you did just, on your own?
Well, I think when I came out here myself, I was 20. If you think about anything of with kids or without kids, the difference when you're sort of
massive.
Yeah, to when you were everything's just much easier when you're 22. Not a lot of things are harder, but I mean, you're also fearless on that as well. And it was a very different way of coming here. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I think if it could have been articulated to me exactly how hard it would have been, I'm not sure that I would have done it. And I think a lot of people would say that because it just all sounds easier than it is. And there's so many layers to it. So the family aspect sits up there front and centre for me. When we moved here, my son was 5, my daughter was 2, and we moved them away from their grandparents. So that's that was just the hardest thing that you're just dealing. I really felt it a lot from a guilt perspective. I felt that I wore the guilt of that around my neck for a really long time. Our families are as supportive as they can be on those things, but at the end of the day, they didn't want us to move. And that's fine. That's how they feel about it. So that really, for me, that clouded a lot of things. And I know that's not the case for everyone, but in my personal experience, that's how it was. The practicalities of it, of learning a whole new system and way of doing things, was just I think that first 6 months, and what I say to people that come over, that first 6 months is the hardest, and it gets easier in stages from then. The first 6 months, you hemorrhage money. Money just flows through your fingers like water, to the point that when you get a random bill for something that's a few $100s, you're like, okay, that's fine, because everything's $5,000. It's everything's in $5,000 chunks.
What are some of the bills, like the things?
So you've got, we had a mortgage at home, so our house sale, moving our stuff. We didn't bring a lot of stuff with us, but we bought our good stuff. I had a mental deal with myself that I wasn't going to ship anything from IKEA, because IKEA is everywhere.
Yeah.
So everything that was in my house from IKEA did not get shipped over, because there's IKEAs all over the world, and they're very good value all over the world. So our good things, our meaningful things, are things that we'd spent a bit more on. So yeah, you have the shipping costs, then you have the customs costs that come in, and it's not always that clear on what you need to do for them. There's the flights, there's your accommodation for when you get here. There's then the finding accommodation here, which was really easy for us. We were expecting it to be much worse. I think it's much harder now. I have a friend that moved a year after us, and her experience has been very, very different to ours. So yeah, you come in here and you have no credit history. So then when you need to get things like a car, unless you can either buy that outright, but then you're buying a car in cash, or you're taking a car in a finance agreement, but you have no credit history here. So you get the credit options as if you had a poor credit history. Nothing transfers over. And then all the way over to like driving licenses and all these kind of switch ups and changes that are different. So there's a lot of hidden costs in it. And I think we sold our house at home, and that really paid for a lot of it. But I do wonder, when we look at things and we talk about the construction industry here, Queensland is really set to boom, and the reliance on people coming in here. Yeah, there was 4 of us, so that obviously if there's one person, then it's just naturally going to be different. But it's just, I don't know how we would have done it if we didn't have a house to sell as well, because it's a lot to go through these things.
And I think your story, what I really love about it is not only do you have all the games experience, so you understand the scenario we're walking into, but also you've personally like walked the walk yourself and relocated a country with a family. So you kind of know from personal experience what we're up against.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around, how we already have a housing shortage? Like, how are we going to do this?
I don't know. And the thing is, there's a lot of headlines are the same in the UK in terms of housing issues. I was back home earlier this year, and they have those issues without this incoming boom of construction. The housing aspect, there's commitments to build more houses here, and I think that there's now reviews of policy to make things easier. From a fact checking perspective, I'm not sure, but I was at an event where it was stated that it takes longer to build a house now than it did 20 years ago.
Yes.
Which is crazy with the advancements in technology and things like that. But productivity has been looked at. There's major government reviews on that. It's very much a hot topic in industry. The incoming technology, but also the approvals as well. So when you, again, from an industry events and industry knowledge part of it, unlocking how quick that process can be to go from an initial land buy and registration through to the end process of building it. I think if they can be reviewed and brought in, but it's challenging here. Queensland's such an attractive place to be. So there's the interstate migration and also the overseas migration from there. So we were living in Brisbane when we got here, and we've had to move up to the Sunshine Coast because Brisbane was just really out of reach for us. I do question, should we have bought as soon as we landed here? But we weren't ready. We just came from somewhere else, but the market has changed so quickly in that time. When we started looking at, bearing in mind that the time that I'd suggested to my husband that we would look at moving here, that was 2021. We started the process January 2022. It took us until May 2023 to get here. And then we didn't buy a house until December 2024. So the change in that period of time is huge. And ours was relatively quick as well. It can take people a lot longer. From a migration perspective, construction is very high on the skilled migration list. So that does help to quicken things up a little bit. But the housing aspects, I'm really not sure how, because I just see the challenges that we had. When you see things on the news around that and around the influx of people for the Olympics and the infrastructure, I do feel like I'm the walking, talking test case of that. And we were in early as well, in terms of, I mentioned that when I went to Glasgow 2014, 3 years out, I was one of the earlier ones there. We're much earlier than that here. So the wave is yet to come, and how that's addressed from a housing perspective. I'm not sure, because I don't think Brisbane's got such a great quality of life. Southeast Queensland's got such a great quality of life. I think it would be a real shame if people had to do it on a FIFO basis, because I don't think that's really the right community building legacy that you want to have on that.
You mentioned there, that got me thinking as well, because I actually live about an hour out of Brisbane, and there's amazing development in the Somerset, Ipswich region, Sunshine Coast region. I think, I recently went to a round table where one of the MPs, or the state infrastructure MP, was talking about, looking at, I think what you said before was really interesting, around looking at making things quicker and more streamlined for housing approvals. And also there's a lot of caveats around, subdividing and things like, it's very hard, to, as an example, we have 37 acres. I could not subdivide it and give some to my, and sell some off to my sister, or as per the laws right now. Very hard to do that for to sell and have your mum maybe move on an acre, or a family member. You can't do that right now. So there's a lot of red tape to get through to actually do it. So I think what you said there is really powerful, because it's also what things that people are talking about with procurement, faster procurement processes for the actual delivery of the work. I think we just need to get speedier, Queensland.
And I do think there has been a drive to look at those things. And I do a lot of in-market engagement and a lot of events around that. It is a common topic as well. So I think that those initiatives do seem to be sitting on the table now from a government review. They do have a part to play though. So it's such a hard balance for them to make sure that everything is doing the right thing and going through the right processes, that we're not going back to the points of you can throw anything up. And there's the other aspects of sustainability and the right infrastructure in place. So they do need to have their place in there as well. So how they find that balance will be really interesting to see, and how you can scale it up as well. So the large scale developments, we're in Aura up at the Sunshine Coast, and that I think is one of the largest, if not the largest, developments in Australia. That they are really pushing houses out a lot there, and that's not really always typically the Australian way, because there's an abundance of land here, and it's been much more common, I think, than it is in other countries, certainly in the UK, where people buy land and build a house themselves. It's much more common here to do that than it is, say, in the UK, and the mass developments are less common. I find, again, that's just my perspective of coming from overseas to here. But without those larger developments, I don't see how it's possible to get the numbers
I agree.
there. But then also that brings education infrastructure, road infrastructure, health infrastructure as well, that boost of everything on the back of it.
You're so right with what you say as well around, so we're trying to build the housing, but we need the infrastructure to keep up. My sister just moved close to us, which is awesome. Out in Walloon is this a similar type thing, like an estate, and she's going through the build process.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Every week you drive out there, there's more houses. It's going really quickly, but yet we still have to have infrastructure to catch up as well as and dealing with traffic and all that sort of stuff from the Sunshine Coast to Brisbane. So that's going to be really exciting with the portfolio of roads and rail coming. We're all going to be very busy.
Yeah, it's growing pains, isn't it?
It is.
Growing so much that there's the growing pains along with it.
What have you learnt through, like what are some of the patterns? So you've done so many sporting events and also been working in the construction side. Now with what's ahead of us, what are some of the challenges that we can expect? We've not done this scale of Olympics and work before. What are some of the things you see strategically that we're going to maybe be up against?
I think there's always a connection point. Everyone's project is the most important, and we do that in our own lives anyway. The things that we're passionate about are the most important. That real connection, similar to what we talk about with housing, is the connectivity across it. You can't have the housing without the infrastructure, without the health facilities, without the education facilities. But also there's a finite pool of what can be done because you've got a finite pool of resources, contractors, consultants, designers, all of that there. So that connection, hopefully from a government perspective of what is that pipeline in health? What is that pipeline in infrastructure? What is the pipeline in Olympics? Education? Is there a way that they can be connected to maybe potentially flatten that curve of what is to come to help manage those peaks? And through that engagement, one of the things that I do find in Queensland, which is great, is the proactivity of the groups such as NAWIC, Property Council, Committee for Brisbane, IEQ, to name but a few, and that connection that they do have directly into government and into decision makers, and that advocacy that they do is huge here. It's really strong, and it's that market-led insight on there, and having that direct link back into real decision makers, I think, is key in being able to take the industry lead to match it with policy, to match it with forecasting, to really look at the whole picture. I'm from a project management and more so a program management perspective, so I've got a habit of rolling everything up to say, what is the whole thing? How can you look? You can't look at it unless you look at the whole thing. So that connectivity for me is really huge. To set it up for success and to keep it going. And I'm sure that's very much in the minds of those that are making those policy decisions on there and looking at that pipeline. One
of the things we've spoken about before is workforce capability as well. I get asked this question all the time. Oh, you manage a recruitment business. You know, what's the solution? You must know. I was like, well, if I did know the silver bullet, I wouldn't be constantly so busy in a recruitment business, right? Because the challenge is you are right. Like we've got a skills shortage, that we foresee. And the hard part is talking about that right now. There's a bit of a lull in some companies right now where are being awarded work that might not start till 2026, right? So we've still got these slower procurement cycles that are adding some pressure there. But the reality is we've all seen the figures. We're not going to have enough people. Have you had that with some of the other games and events that you've done before where they've had those shortages, and what could we look at?
I think from a resourcing perspective, not so much. So just for full disclosure, the Brisbane Olympics is the first sort of foray that I've had into Olympics. I've done Commonwealth and European and Pan Am, and generally, I think it's been okay on there. But you've got a number of things that are going on here just now because this has been on the back of the COVID boom, of the population increase, and Southeast Queensland, that there's a number of different factors that are all in the mix here. There's the size of the city of Brisbane and that trajectory for it to go from the large town town type of city to a major player on that. Whereas if you look at that in comparison to other events where London 2012 or what's coming for LA 2028, people in industry will say that you can drop an event into these huge cities and it creates some ripples as well. Part of the event organisation is to make sure that is as big a bang and as big a show as possible. But these cities are so large with such huge populations as well that I think it can be less impactful than the impact that it has here in Brisbane, because the scale is different, the ambition is huge, and I think that's the great harnessing of the opportunity there. So I think Brisbane's a little bit of a different test case on those because there's so many other factors in there, and how that's going to grow in terms of a resourcing perspective.
Yeah,
I think is a little bit untested here.
I was at an event yesterday or the day before. It was like the major pipeline briefing. QMCA does that for what's coming. It was really interesting. And one of the stats that was just sort of, they mentioned, but sort of stayed with me as well, is that we've had a 12% reduction in women in the industry. 12% in the last 12 months. Now, I know, I'm involved in NAWIC, and I know you had involvement obviously overseas in similar type organisations. I think, I think one of the challenges is going to be as well is, how do we engage more women?
Yeah. And
I just think a 12% loss, I don't know, that just sort of sat with me. Like, why? What's going on here? And it wasn't something that they stayed on much at the event. Like, it was just a stat, right? But I was just pondering over it and going, what else can we improve to make it better across contractor, consultants, design? What are some of the factors for workforce capability that we need to consider that create more diverse workforces?
Yeah. It's interesting because I've heard similar facts previously. And again, COVID seems to be like a marker point for so many of us in terms of pre-COVID and post-COVID. That's like our lives have been divided into those two parts now. I'd heard another statistic, and it was in terms of the millions of women that have left the industry since COVID. And I think there's, again, similar to what we talked about in the resources, there's a few different factors in that. I think the re-looking at work patterns and what people can do remotely from home changed things for a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to hope that means that they've gone into other businesses that they're doing really well in. But there's been something that's been driving that there. And is it a case of being in the office 5 days a week? Is it a case of looking at flexibility? Is it a case of being able to deploy skills in other industries that are best suited for it? There's I think the stats are they're quite disheartening as well, because I think industries like NAWIC and advocates, people like you that are advocating for women in industry. I was part of Women in Property in Scotland, and it's kind of, like you say, similar setup. We're doing so much advocacy, but we're still losing women from this industry. And in general, I love the construction industry. I've always really enjoyed it, but there is aspects of it that get really, really difficult. I have a bit of a personal gripe when people say, but we've got 50-50 at graduate level and in terms of male-female. But that's not where the issues are. And if that's where you think the issues are when you're looking at these points, then you don't really have the right perspectives feeding into it. The changes happen further down the track, and the widening of everyone is very familiar now with the pay gap and the gender pay gap reporting, which actually they've been doing in the UK for a number of years now. And that it's not really getting much better over time, because I don't think the issue's not at that earlier stage in career where things are 50-50. The change happens further down the track, and it's generally there's pretty strong links from when women go on maternity leave, that returning back, the availability for flexible arrangements for part-time working, and how you can settle back into that. I loved being on site when I was younger, but realistically, I couldn't do construction site operations now from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's just not an option for me and the family life that I have. So what else exists? And it's not, I think we look at things as an industry and think, well, if you can't do those hours, then that's not construction. But construction has so many roles in there.
Yes.
That there's so many other different options in it. It's not that the only role in construction is on site there. How that works then, the trades aspect of it is that's an even more difficult part to tackle in there. And I was pleased when I'd seen through NAWIC here, which I think is something that the UK can learn from, where there's the real focus on women in trades as well. I don't think from a UK perspective we really got to grips with that and that push there, but it's a harder task again because of the things that we talked about. So how can we tackle it? How can we have that encouragement that women can do well in this industry? And I'm a huge believer in the saying that you can't be what you can't see. Taking that point of when you've got a female role model that you can look to and say, well, they're doing these things and they're doing it successfully and they're enjoying it as well. There's a lot of burnout culture. So I don't want people to be aspiring to be someone that's completely burnt out all the time as well. So there's a lot of real behavioural things that need to be addressed and cultural things, and it's a complex topic to tap into. One of the things that I guess a little quip that I'll do on a personal level, if we say something needs to be full-time, just asking the question of, do you see this as being a full-time role? Why does that need to be a full-time role? Is it possible that it could be on a 3-4 day week role? Just to ask the questions on there. Do you see that? Does that need to be an on-site role? Is there going to be a level of engagement that they need to be in a client office, for example, every day on that? Is that why this must be a full-time in-person role on there? And just dropping some questions in there that maybe just trigger a thought process of, oh, well, is this the case for it? So when we talk around resources, when we're looking at a more connected and technology-driven environment, it may not mean that from an architect perspective or a cost management perspective that we're only dealing with companies in Brisbane for Brisbane 2032. There could be some fantastic companies with the right skill set that are in Adelaide or in Perth and that are providing that valuable input to it. So they probably won't all be in a room all at the one time. There might be requirements for to be in those rooms at those times as well. But if there's more resources needed here, then we need to look wider than that, and we need to challenge things on quite a few levels. A positive challenge, I think, in terms of what can you achieve from this? What might this unlock if we look at it in this way?
I think the more that we do challenge, and I think construction in particular, and I'm probably more focusing on some of the contracting. I've had conversations as someone who does challenge. I had one once with a building contractor where I said, can this role, I'm looking for someone that's looking for just a bit of flexibility, and all that the person wanted was just to be able to do drop off, like our husband did pick up, and just a bit of flexibility around drop off and pick up. And he said to me, oh, we don't really offer flexibility here. It's construction. Okay. And so I said, okay, that's interesting. And he goes, look, we interviewed a woman, last week that wanted full remote, and we can't do that. And I said, that's interesting because that's a definition of flexibility for that person, but it is different for different people. And it is not just a one-size-fits-all model. And the reality is, and I bang on about this a lot, and I don't care because I'm going to bang on about it again, we have 2 people in the workforce right now. Most families have 2 people in the workforce because of it's so expensive to you know, the mortgage, the house that you've experienced, the bills of coming over here. It's not cheap, right, to run a family. And it's not going to get cheaper. And so that just adds additional pressure to the family situation. And it's not just what I'm noticing as well. It doesn't just improve diversity, but also I've had post-placement check-ins with men that have come into the role and they're like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy because, you know, the common themes I'm seeing is the technology here is great, so I can be way more efficient. The flexibility I have, I've seen my son's soccer game. And so because I'm able to go to the soccer game, I actually coach the team now. So I'm engaged in that community, which then enriches my life to come back to work. So I feel like exactly what you said before, if we start to just shift our thinking, I'm only asking for a little bit to kind of go, I placed a commercial person on 4 days a week that was a full-time job and she's been promoted twice, right? Yeah. Still was on 4 days during those promotions. So if we just start to challenge our thinking around why a role needs to be done a certain way, people can manage outcomes. We're adults. We've done this for years. If you are a highly driven person, you know what you've got to get done and you figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that you've said just resonates on that. The flexibility aspect. So there's an initiative which I followed for a few years now called Flex Appeal, and it's actually sponsored by a tier 1 contractor in the UK. And the studies that they've put into that in terms of the increase in the general staff morale, reduction in sick leave, longevity of employment, of all these things that it brings from there. I think but we do these studies time and time again, and they come out with these real tangible results, but we go, oh, no. I know that it says that, but it's just not.
Can't do that here.
It's just not how we do it. And why is that? Why is it not how we do that? Because I think so much of it's embedded in trust as well. If you have an issue with if you have a concern of trust with any employee, I think you have that concern whether they're sat in the office or whether they're not. So I don't think that that's something that is only for those that are on a flexible working term. So, and it's just those little, the challenges on it, I think, can be small and can be effective in terms of, well, what makes you think of that? And what if it could be done like this? And what might that enable? I think it helps the workforce. I think it helps the balance. It helps the increase in the female participation up at more senior levels. And I do think that it generally, I've not read anything that says it's a bad thing.
No, I haven't either. And you know what so I was speaking, I had a lunch with, and she listens to the podcast, she'll know I'm talking about her, with a commercial manager who moved from interstate. And she told me, like, no family support, daycare. So it's just a simple challenge of, oh my gosh, daycare doesn't open in time. And this is going to be the challenge with trades, for me to be able to get to work at the time I'm meant to get there. It is a simple systemic issue that just makes it hard, right? And we've got to think, I think what you said, can we just be curious? Like, can we just be open-minded to different ways? But that is also on the onus of people hiring, but also us in HR and recruitment and talent management. We can't just be yes people. We have to be curious. We have to challenge if we're going to improve the sector as well, for everyone, because it's not just, I think there's this, and there's this thing as well, people think flexibility is just working from home. No, I know people that don't want to work from home. I know some people that just want to do drop off and pick up but be in the office full time. I know other people that just need pickup, and would like to work from home 1 day a week. They're all different.
It's a definition of flexibility. But I don't think, you mentioned it earlier, I don't think we want to have a flexibility but policy. Flexibility, that means 4 days in the office and 1 day from home. Flexibility, but that means, because then the flexibility but process just by its very nature doesn't suit everyone. And also there's some people that just don't want to do that as well. There's a woman in my team at work, and she is the heart of our team. Everyone goes to her. She's so ingrained in it. She does not like working from home. She'll only work from home if she absolutely has to. And that's fine. That works for her. I like being in the office. I like seeing people. I like that one-to-one engagement with people. But I also like to be able to drop off the kids and to be able to pick up the kids as well. Again, you touched on it there from an immigration perspective. My mum and dad are here just now, so that's amazing because we've got that. But generally, we don't have that support surrounding us. So the daycare situation, and I don't want my daughter to be in daycare for 12 hours a day. So there's all these other aspects of it. I want to be there, but I want to have it all. Maybe I do. But I think things can work for different people. But just when we're looking into these policies, just don't make it a flexibility but policy, because that flexibility policy, if it's then written by someone that has their idea of flexibility and what that means for them and what might suit them, it's not necessarily what suits everyone. But I also think there has to be an understanding as well of people's working arrangements and what is set up for them and the process that they go through. It has to be specific to that person, but it also can't really be a decision by committee for everyone, because really we don't know the ins and outs of what people are doing or what their workload looks like or what their personal circumstances look like, what their pay looks like, and nor should we. It should be based on the individual, the merit, balancing the needs of the business as well, but making sure that we're testing that the needs of the business is being met through the most efficient way as well, not just something that's set in because that's how we've always done it.
And also, I think there's a big role for leaders to, in some ways, when you've got an outcomes-based focus of leading, these are the outcomes and objectives, and you have a level of trust with your employees to deliver on those, starting to look at, the productivity gap with technology as an enabler and systems, and how can we get, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is how can we get more out of people without expecting them to sacrifice their family, their lives, their working hours to do it. It shouldn't be like that, and we need to, as a sector, go, how can we, this is something that isn't just about technology to make things more efficient. That's great, and we'll make more money on projects, but it will help fix culture too.
Yeah, it's so tricky, isn't it? And I'm not sure what the answer is on that, because the culture is important, and there's definitely validity when people talk about having people into the office to help build that culture.
Agreed.
I don't think it's necessarily the only way that you can help build culture, because there's lots of aspects to culture. It's the trust, it's the communication, it's the positive environment. But I think it's tricky to be able to balance. I don't think that as an industry we have that right, but I also am not sure if any industry has that right yet. And maybe that's something that will come in future generations, because I guess the downside of the flexibility, this was actually a conversation with my mum yesterday. My mum retired, took early retirement 10 years ago, and my mum always worked hard. I've got a strong work ethic, and I definitely get that from her. But she would be the person that would put the lights on in the office in the morning, because she's just always up early. Up early in terms of Scottish standards, not Queensland standards, because Queensland is on a whole different path on that. You don't see anyone out at 5 a.m. in Scotland. It's not a thing. But so she would be the one that would be putting the lights on in the office. But she had a desktop computer, and for most of her career, she didn't have a mobile phone. And when she left the office, that was her until the next day. Whereas what the flexibility aspect has brought in, and it's something that I think is pushing the other way, is that always available point. Always able to connect on something. And there's been some policies recently in Australia in terms of the right to disconnect, but they are hard to implement there as well. So there's that aspect of both of it, and it's such I think as we're stepping through each of these, because we are very new into this flexible working space, into the virtual space, it's really been less than 5 years that this has been really moving off in earnest, again in that post-COVID era. But the flip side of it is different because I think our working days are elongated much more now. It can be the Friday evening, the Saturday morning, can you just have a look at this? Now, there's so many different platforms to communicate on that I think we also need to consider that as well.
It's also really hard. Well, sometimes it's hard to shut off too because you are always on. And so that takes, I actually only speaking personally, but I'm sure there's other people that relate to this. That takes a personal toll too to know when do you turn it on and off. You know, if you're a driven and ambitious person and you want to do a good job, that doesn't just end at 5 o'clock, and that's the hard part. Yeah. What are your thoughts around, you know, from a leadership perspective, and I'm interested in this myself because I'm a work in progress too, how do we build a bit of balance for ourselves and our teams?
I think when I know the answer to that, I'll implement it on myself. And then
teach me. I think we're figuring that out, right?
Yeah, and it is from a female perspective as well. I do feel that, and sort of been raised on the point of we can do everything and we can have the big careers and we can have the family side of it and we can do all of these things. And then you see more and more in terms of like online mum community forums and things like that of just that burnout is there for everything because we're trying to be everything to everyone. And it's just not possible. I don't find so. I would be open in saying I don't have that balance right. I'm conscious of, particularly for younger staff members or those that are on maternity leave or returning to work, not to look at me and think that I've got that balance right because I don't. And I think it's if you do think that I have that, it's a very thin veneer that behind that is just not the case of it. And the only person that really sees that is my husband when I'm going, I can't do this and this and this and this. And I think that's also pretty normal as well. And once you start to scratch the surface, you find that we're all very much the same on that question of, do I have that balance here? There's a woman that I've worked with for the last few years that the way that she puts it to me, she has an amazing career and she's had some amazing jobs, really well respected in industry. She says you've got one cup and then you pour from that cup into the career and you pour from that cup into the family. And at different points in your life, the way you split that cup, one side is more full than the other, and you always feel the other side that's not as full. Yeah. If that even makes sense.
100%.
If you're doing really well in the career side of it, you often feel that you're not doing so well in the family side of it. When you're more settled in the family side of it, you feel that are you maybe lacking on the career side of it? Do we need to be doing more in that? And I haven't met anyone that said that they have that balance checked. I think that we're all working through a process of having to redraw those boundaries that I mentioned in terms of that always available and the stretching for everything, and like the introduction of platforms like Teams and Zoom. How many times do people have back-to-back things?
Oh my gosh.
There's no time. You used to have to be able to drive from one place to another, and then at least you could have a coffee and like gather your thoughts or something like that. Or even when you walked into a meeting room, you have like a first few minutes of the conversation with people.
Chat,
those kind of warmer parts for it. So I do think that these are all feeding into that point of imbalance as well. So I just think we're so early in that process of stepping through to find that. But yeah, if anyone listens to this and they've got
if you've got the secret, just let us know.
Text Lauren and then she'll have you on the podcast.
You can share it with
teach us all. If you want to hold a lunch, I'll come. You can.
I had someone ask me that, like, oh, you do so many things. How? And I think similar to the cup, sometimes you've got to realize you know some of the balls are going to drop. You know, I kind of forgive myself a lot. I know that sounds really crazy. Way to approach it, but also kind of going, you can't be everything to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And for a very long time before I started my business, I sort of I went through this phase of thinking, have I been set up to fail here? Like, how am I going to do this even? Like, I've got 2 young kids. I still wanted to stay. And in my old job, I used to have to, it was travel, to projects, to set up projects for weeks and weeks. And my husband was traveling. It wasn't possible for us both to. Like, somebody's, there's a house and, kids and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a lawyer the other day as a friend of mine, and she's like, I'm really cranky at feminists. I laughed at her. She's like, now I have to do more. She's like, the mental load is massive.
Yeah.
So I think more and more women, and I'm not saying, obviously I really enjoy working, right? Like, I think it does make me a better mum because it engages my brain, and I love the stimulation of connecting with people. But I do sometimes feel overwhelmed with the amount of just so much noise in terms of person, because you might be I'll talk to a candidate, a client, then negotiating an offer, then one thing after another, just constantly stimulating the brain. You're right. Like I like that time, and I think we need to find the time. Sometimes I just drive in the car in silence.
Yeah. I took my dog for a walk the other day, and I was walking back into the street and realised that I had my headphones in and I didn't have anything playing through them. And I was like, I never
I know.
even noticed that I hadn't switched anything on.
I drove for an hour once. I'd had meetings all day. I'd had a couple of client meetings. Then I'd been on the phone returning calls in between those meetings. Yeah. And I realised I'd driven for an hour in complete silence, and I think I needed it. I stopped. I was like, there's no music. No one's asking me questions from the back. Have I just had silence for an hour? So I agree with what you're saying, and I think we actually need to intentionally carve out some of those times to think. If a good friend of mine is writing books, she's an engineer, but she does Felicity Fury. A lot of you would know her. She's writing a book, and she was saying to me the other day, she intentionally carves out just some quiet time because you can't think if you're always on. And so I'm trying to do that. Again, though, work in progress.
Yeah.
Because it can fill up because there's often so much to do.
Yeah. And then I think sometimes you're just adding to your list of things. Like when you've got that growing list, and then you're trying to make your list better and more balanced, so you put something else on your list and you go, why am I not getting on top of this list when I'm now I need to schedule in my quiet
think time
on it. And then I think that's like, oh God, have we all just gone too far on these things as well?
Yeah.
And this is where I feel like, again, having my mum here and having that chat with someone that's had their career and is now, she's looking at me and my sister and saying, well, this is all too much now, because when she was working, my grandmother looked after me because she was working full time. And she says, you're doing all of the things that previously it was split up across those. And it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And you're doing the things at 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. and your phone rings at this, that, and the next thing. And with someone that I always thought worked so hard, for her to be looking at us now and going, well, I think that this is too hard on these ones, because she sees that shift in culture. So yes, I do wonder, do we need to peel back from this as well? Which is so hard to do because we talk about how can we get flexibility and the technology advancements as well. But it's like, how much is too much? And that's why I feel that we're really in this phase of stepping through this sort of new format of working environment, the pros, the cons, and trying to get to that. But also I think that just might be the stage that I'm at in life, that this is my first time trying to navigate it with, I've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So I'm trying to navigate this with an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old in a new country. But I'm not the first person. We've generations have done this before me. So there's that point that's your personal experience as well.
Yeah. I'm starting to be more kind to myself. That's one thing I've changed. Kind and curious. Being curious about why I might feel a certain way, and being kind to myself if I am overwhelmed or something like that, and just also not comparing myself to anybody else.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I will look at, something that another company or, it's generally a founder of recruitment, they'll boast about something and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm not there, or looking at what other people is. But we're looking at people's highlight reels, right? And even when they present themselves as so put together sometimes in a work environment, it's still, it's a performance, and it's still a show and you don't know what's going on under the layers.
Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely been something that I think has changed in me in the last 8 to 10 years, that I refer it to as staying in my lane.
Mm.
And I'm not only in my lane on those. I'm quite an engaging person in a workplace as well, but focused on the things that I'm doing, the things that I want to do. I think that's maybe time driven as well, of that's all I've got time to sort of focus on as well, the things with my team where I need to be involved in. But that lack of comparison, I think, really helps. Definitely taking that check of you're the only person that's doing what you're doing in the situation that you're doing it in. And some days you'll feel like you've got everything all together and you're like, oh my goodness, how efficient am I?
I know.
So if I've at home, if I've done some like meal prepping things, and I've like done some batch cooking, I've got the washing, and I've just done the things, and I'll joke to my husband, and I'm like, you know that I can't sustain this, so it's too hard.
Let me enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
This morning I looked at the washing and I came upstairs. I was like to my husband, he's in tech and IT, so he's working from home. I was like, please help me with the washing. I said, it is overwhelming me how much we're not on top. And I say we're because we share the washing. It's not just my job. We all wear clothes. So I was looking at it. I was like, it's just, I'm not on top of it. And I remember thinking, but then I stopped myself and I went, you have had a flat out week. You've been so busy with work. Beat yourself up that there's some washing there. Like you've cooked most night. I cooked. I'm not a very good cook, but I've got a Thermomix. I'm not plugging them, but I'm saying it has helped. Even my family is like, wow, Mum, like this is edible. It's great. So I have improved that because I just like agree with you. Just starting to go and celebrate the wins of, I've had a good week at work. Okay, maybe the washing's not that great. Could do with vacuum upstairs, but you know, we can't possibly be 100% on in all the things. Yeah.
I unfollowed loads of things on social media that were the perfect homes. Oh. And I thought, why am I looking at this? Like, why am I following this show home that has these people that live here that it doesn't look as though they live there?
I know.
So, and it's such a basic thing to do, but I was just like, why am I following this garbage?
Yeah.
The beige rooms that are completely untouched. There's some children running around everywhere. So I just have it accepted in my mind that just how my mum and dad live in it as well. My house looks like 6 people live in it. And that's fine because we do.
Yes.
That's where we live.
Yes.
If that's okay. So there's some of these new sort of standards that have creeped in, and again, it's that I think the comparison part there is the social media side of it. And whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Instagram. I don't have TikTok because I just don't need another reason to scroll at nonsense on my phone. So I've got all these books piled up beside my bed as if I don't just watch Instagram reels and send them to my friends before
exactly what I do. I'm sending reels, even to my husband. I send reels, and he's beside me if they're funny. Like that's sometimes our way of just having a joke together.
Exactly. And I've got like 8 books sitting there as if I'm going to read them and not just send reels. Things that make you feel like you doubt yourself. Do you need them? That curiosity of, do I need to follow this nonsense? No. I don't even know who this person is. I don't even know where they live in America. I've never heard of that place. Why am I following them?
For me, because I have like animals, lots of animals, but I need to unfollow the homesteads that look perfect because I'm like, oh, look at that barn. Like how do they get such a nice barn? Oh, and that chicken coop? Oh, my goodness. That's like some sort of crazy fancy. You're right.
Get me your phone right now. I don't even know what a good barn looks like on these ones. You have to take that out.
Not healthy for me, Ashley.
No, it's not. It's not.
And I think for me, obviously, LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn to share insights, but I definitely need to, I've made an active decision to love seeing what our clients and things is, but not to compare what, you know, everyone's on a different journey in terms of also what drives them and what success looks like for them. For me personally, success and reward comes from finding the person in the right role. And that's not going to appear on LinkedIn, right? That's something that I feel with the connection with someone, what's always driven me. So if I'm on LinkedIn then comparing to someone's highlight reel and what they're posting, I was like, oh, wow, their socials are so great. I agree with you. I'm now going to actively, if I see something and it doesn't, you know, inspire me, you know, starting to, because we talk about it with our inner circle, right? We've got to protect the circle of people we have around us because, you know, they then become our energy. They fuel us, our really close friends. I've had some friends since I was 11, and every time I see them, they are like a warm hug.
Chicken soup for the soul.
Chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah.
And I got, so you said in the 8 to 10 years you stopped sort of following stuff. I stopped letting people in to my life that didn't want the best for me.
Yeah.
And I started to go, who in my inner circle, both at work and at home, that really want me to succeed, and I want them to succeed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, it's those people that you feel lighter from after you leave.
Yeah. And I think there's a values piece in that. And I know that it can sound really cheesy, but there's the values. What do you value? Do you value that someone's got a great LinkedIn post about something that they've done and they've written it really well, and like all these things are
graphics are great.
Yeah, great use of emojis. But is it that, or is it that you value seeing the people that you like, admire, respect doing well on those things, or seeing how things are changing? And I think when you have that familiarity, and this is something that I think is amazing for groups like NAWIC, Women in Property really changed my sort of professional and personal life, because I just found this group of women that we were in different parts of construction. We really understood things for each other. There's a variance in where we're at in our careers, the types of careers that we have, where we're at in our family life as well. But you get that natural bringing together of people that are just really aligned on their values, and they might look, sound, feel different across it, but there's like a little core group of things, and these groups like NAWIC and Women in Property are amazing for finding that, and I think really helping you unlock what you truly value there as well. So, and that the personal mishmash that creates,
I love it
as well.
I agree.
I really love it. I sort of unofficially, I hate to say this, she says it, so I'll say it, but I mentor the current chair for Women in Property for Central Scotland. I love that we have that. We worked for competitor organisations at home, and then we sort of came in from Women in Property. I was supposed to step in as chair, but I was leaving to come here in the May, so everyone had to step up a year earlier. So I'd said to her, I think that you should come in on the junior vice chair part to take on that. So now she's sitting in the role as chair, and it's from that sort of natural alignment of the people that are you have just a deeper connection with, but you know them professionally, but you're really sort of driving towards the same things. You share the same values, and I think that goes so much more than you. And you'll find you're actually not comparing yourself to these people because you know that you're wanting the same things. You're cheerleaders for each other, and you're pushing things on in a positive way, and that's just far more investment of time than something that's not making you feel great. And quite often I think your comparison is from people that you don't even really know.
No, you don't.
So you don't know anything about them.
No. And often, you know, that's why these communities, and I agree, and NAWIC and all the different inspiration I get from other women through NAWIC, even just a co-chair on education and mentoring in that committee, not just the committee heads, but my co-chair Cass as well, working with her, we're good at different things. And so I get inspired by her, like, energy with the schools. Whereas, I mean, I really love the scholarship side that we do. You know, we all love different things, but we all have a core purpose, is that we want to get more and retain women in the industry. You know, like we all, and we want that because we want to make the industry better. And I think there's something, you know, I think what you touched on there, there's this importance as well as we see migration into Queensland. Let's keep building the communities. We cannot let flexibility, AI or anything take away the community, because to me, the reason I've stayed in construction ever since psychology, there is this amazing sense of community on projects in these organisations that I just haven't seen elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I think if anyone's listening to this and they feel that they don't have that sort of community, just try it. And what I've found through those is that you won't love every event. So personally, I don't love the huge events. I like the small ones, 20, 25 people. That's my comfort zone. And that's whether it's a sort of women in construction related part or any other type of event. I like the smaller spaces there. Also, I find it even more so here, because if it's a big room of people can't understand me and the noise of it. So it's finding the different things that you want to go to. Maybe it's starting for things that are through the CPD side of things, that you're going to some of the legal briefings or some topics that you're interested in, or is it the social events? You don't need to go to everything and like everything across there, but give it a few chances to sort of find your flow on things, because they can really open things up. And even if you're working on projects and you got on particularly well with someone, that just reach out and see if they want to get a coffee as well. So, and you come up through the ranks with a lot of the same people as well. So I think finding that community in industry, people that you know, people that you trust, I think there's something really special in that. And the people that I know in Women in Property in Scotland would 100% agree. And you see that community through people in NAWIC as well.
I definitely agree. And just as a plug for NAWIC as well, the Women in Business lunches and networking with NAWIC are smaller groups. So for people that are listening that are like, mind you, the awards is super fun. I do love the awards. It's I get any excuse to dance and celebrate. Yeah. But I also, I can identify with that. I do go to the pipeline breakfasts and things like that as well. But I really do like the smaller events where you can talk and really focus and get to know a couple of people really well. I think they can be really valuable, especially if you're new to the area too.
Yeah, and there's something for everyone in those. And it's just finding the one that's right for you.
Yes.
As well, when we talk, a lot of our conversation's been about flexibility, and we need different things. There's different things that will charge our social batteries better than others. So finding the right thing that's there. There's such the variance of events that's on offer here, I think is amazing. So they're great communities to be part of, and I'd really encourage people to get involved in them.
Yeah. So, and the few just to highlight to people, you've got NAWIC, you've also got QMCA, IAQ, CCF, the Property Council. Like there's quite a few, and a lot of them are free and things like that. So I think people just think that it's not about, even for me being in recruitment, it's not about doing business or anything like that. It's actually about community. It's actually, people are all there for the same reason. They just want to connect with other people and build relationships in the sector. So when you're all there for the same purpose, it's actually not as daunting as many people think it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that part for me, when we talk about coming down here, one of the things I was nervous about was I had a really solid network in Scotland, because I'd been part of those organisations for a few years. So I was quite comfortable in that space. I felt I was starting from scratch here. So from that, coming into a new point and building a network, it's just organically one bit at a time, and that reaching out to, maybe it's someone that you know through someone else, and you reach out for the year and it's a coffee, and then it leads to another conversation on that. So it can feel like a slow process, but it's a valuable process to do, and it is worth investing that time in it, and just make that first move, because then one conversation leads to another. So
and go with, I always say as well, you don't have to connect with everyone, you won't, but just go with the feeling. You will have a feeling when you talk to people and you're like, I say this all the time, you're my people. You will have people that are your people, and those are the people you want to gravitate towards, because together you'll do more, because naturally you just feel that connection.
Yeah. And I used to go to these kind of events and think, from a networking perspective, I should be coming out with like 15 and cat stuff. And I was like, that's just not
realistic.
Come out with like one or two, that's great.
Yeah.
So, but also if you walk into something and you're there from that sort of networking perspective, but you know it's just not going to happen, or you're not feeling it, just cut and run.
Yes.
And then try again.
Yes.
Another time.
Yes.
On those, because you're just not always in that space where it's not gelling with you as well. But one or two connections is perfect.
I've thought about this a lot because, you know, I've been the same, like networking is obviously part of my role, but I prefer 1 to 2 deep connections.
Yeah.
But here's what I was explaining this to a graduate the other day. She's like, I tried to make sure I talk to all the employers. I was like, well, hang on. What if you had 2 that you really wanted to talk to, right? You really, really would love to work there. Or even, and this same applies if you're going to an event and you really connect with 2 people. If you connect with those 2 people and build that meaningful connection, what then just organically happens is that leads to other connections that are values aligned with you. You connect with them, and then they might go, oh my gosh, you need to meet a good friend of mine. So the connective piece of networking doesn't have to happen all at that one event. You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself if you want to meet 15 people, because I've been the same. If you just said, I want to have like good connections with 1 or 2, and who knows where that might lead, I 100% agree with you, because we're taught when we look at networking and business development even, we're taught that, you know, you got to have a strategy before you go to these events and what names, and I don't believe that. Like, I think the authenticity of building a couple of genuine connections and building on those is very powerful for building a community. I agree with you.
Yeah. And I think we talked about just having an influx of people into the city as well. So that's going to be even more so if people are then familiar in that industry and someone moves in from overseas, like reach out, speak to them. They'll be so appreciative of it as well. And then you can be that first connection that's on there. So things like that really cost anything, and they can just really make a huge difference to people just on that comfort factor and introducing people in. And when you're talked about the growing pains of the bigger challenges, these are just on that smaller points of growing pains where you've got new people sort of changing circles as well. There's a woman in my team that's coming back from maternity leave, and that re-entry for women back into workforce when they've been off of maternity leave and feeling quite isolated, that sort of touch point as well, if that reach out, it can just do so much. Like the power of those connections is just, it's huge, and you don't realise the difference that you can make to someone on that as well.
So with all the work that you've been doing, career and personally, what's the legacy you hope to leave in the sector for your work? Or in general legacy, really?
I appreciate now that I have a voice, and I like to put that voice across in a positive and engaging way. And I appreciate that not everyone has that confidence to speak up on that curiosity, on those positive challenges. I want to be able to push open doors that maybe people felt were closed before, but I want to hold those doors open for other people to then come through them behind me. And to have that, I want it to be a positive impact on, you can do this and you can make these things work. But also, if I ever find the right balance from being able to teach people on the balance point, that can be my thing. I want to make a positive impact for women in construction, and to be able to help those that are maybe not as confident in speaking up, don't think that they can maybe get to that next point. I want to be able to help push that path and have other people walk that path as well.
I love the analogy of holding the door open.
Hold the door open.
You know, when you're like walking somewhere, when someone opens the door, you're like, oh, thanks. Like, you know, especially if you've got a handful of stuff and someone just holds that door. Yeah. It's just a powerful metaphor. And it's just, honestly, it sums up you. I see that through you. You're just honestly a good human. Like it just shines through to me, and has from the very first moment I spoke to you. So I love that. That's great.
That's a really nice thing to say. Thank you.
So the next is the rocket round, where we go through and ask a few fun questions. Pew, coffee or wine?
Coffee.
Yep. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
And favourite holiday destination?
Oh, I'm actually going to Sydney tomorrow with my husband, and we're going to see Oasis. And I love Sydney.
Yes.
It's always, I think because I always loved Australia, which is why I went to all the hassle moving back here. And I just love Sydney. I was a backpacker in Piermont, walking distance from Darling Harbour, and we went back when we got here a couple of years ago, and it was just the best. It was just, so I'm really looking forward to going there.
That's awesome.
Tomorrow.
I went there on a girls' trip recently, loved it too. Like, and I feel like it's got this social buzz even more so now. So Sydney's so fun to visit too. We have a lot of clients there, so I went on the girls' trip, and it was just really nice to enjoy it as a tourist, not going there for work. It was so fun.
Yeah.
So agree with you there. And favorite holiday destination podcasts that you listen to, or books?
Oh, podcasts that I listen to. I still listen to a lot of UK-based podcasts. There's not that I'm open to Australian podcast recommendations. There's one in the UK called BBC Women's Hour, and it's a Radio 4 radio show. And when you're growing up, like, no one, you'd be like, who's listening to Radio 4? And now I love listening to that radio.
Well, it probably also brings you that familiarity of home too. Like,
and it's quite topical, so I love listening to that. And then there's 2 Irish comedians that I listen to, which is inappropriate and not professional, called My Therapist Ghosted Me, and that's my weekly listen. They're 2 very different things.
Yeah, okay.
One's really focused on like political and women's issues,
and the other one is just hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious. So a lot of swearing and a lot of wine and stuff involved in it. So
sounds like my kind of podcast.
Yeah.
And what makes you feel like you're home?
What makes me feel like I'm home? Every night that I walk in, my kids come running towards me and my dog, and it's just the best. I just could bottle that up, and that's my thing, is just being home with my family.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on the podcast. How can people connect with you, learn more about you? Is LinkedIn the...
If you would like to, yes. I always think, God, would anybody want to?
Yeah, well, maybe they're listening and being like, I want to be Ashley's friend.
Yeah, and I'm 2.5 years in. I need more friends. Openly, I'm in the market for more friends.
So if you want to be Ashley's friend, feel free to connect with her. Yeah.
Brisbane, Sunshine Coast.
Credentials, let her know what makes you a good friend.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on The Guest. You didn't disappoint. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
If this episode gave you new insights, don't let them go to waste. Take action. Apply them. And if you want more insider strategies from the best in construction and infrastructure, make sure to subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the leaders who open the most doors aren't waiting for opportunities, they're building them.